Hey guys, on this episode of Worth the Wait, we're talking about supporting your life partner through a life transition.
Yeah.
That's a major thing.
Yeah.
And that's something that we dealt with recently because I had a new job opportunity, which was a complete change from what my normal situation was. For those who don't know, Brie and I started a business together probably like 5 or 6 months into dating, and we did that full time for the past like 6 or 7 years. And with I guess it's a great thing. All the success that I've had in production and podcasting opened up and allowed me to have an opportunity to run the podcast network and be the head of podcasting at Urban One, which is the parent company for TV One, Radio One, a lot of digital brands, Madame Noir, Hello Beautiful, Hip Hop Wired. But that was truly a transition for us. I know that was a major transition. That was just one of the many transitions that we've had in our relationship. But I think that a lot of people deal with transitions and different things that their partner goes through that really alters their life in a major way, whether that's a new job or new opportunity, which are kind of like positive things, but also it could be a loss of a job, or it could be a loss of a family member, or it could be a lot of different things that people have. It could be a health situation that somebody's going through. And I know this is a question that somebody asked me. It's like, how do you support your partner through those transitions? And I think I can go first because, like I've said many times on this podcast, there are two sides to every part of the relationship. Even in asking how do you support somebody, there's always somebody on the other side who needs to be supported. So when it came to me thinking about the job thing, or when it came to the new job thing, one thing that I really liked that Bree did, and I'm happy that she did it for me because I did it for her when she decided to close her studio in Cleveland, which was a major life decision because that was like your primary source of income at the time, is that when it was something that the person was contemplating, although you don't leave them hanging and you be a listening ear, you still don't tell them like what to do, because you don't ever want them resenting you if they felt something different, but they went with what you told them to do. Because if it doesn't work out, a lot of times they'll just be like, I didn't even want to do this, but you were so adamant and I feel like you forced me to do this, and now I'm unhappy in this situation. So I feel like that's a major thing when going through like certain life decisions that you as an individual are making, but also affect your partner. Is it always works out if your partner gives you like the space to make that decision.
And what Dre's talking about is when he was deciding whether or not he should take it.
Yeah, take the
Because
position.
he was doing full-time podcasting at that point, had his own network, was working and producing with a few different shows. And so it was a lot of like pros and cons, right? It's like on one hand, you're giving up freedom, so we thought, or so I guess it would seem. And on the other hand, it's like you're getting security and benefits and all these things. And we were like, trying to figure it out. And although when he brought it to me, because it was a really cool opportunity that came back twice, right? And when it came back around the second time, I was in Mexico with my aunts, and I was like, oh God, I really want him to take this. Like, it sounds like a great opportunity. I was like, I could see him killing it. I just see it like even adding to his personal brand and just, opening new doors and opportunities. Like, I just thought it made complete sense. And I was like, healthcare? Yes, please sign me up. But I knew I couldn't tell him to take it. So it was very much like my response to him was like, babe, I support you either way. I think these are the pros and the cons, but like whatever decision you make, I support you 100%. And then hung up the phone. I was like, fuck, I hope he takes it. So yeah, that definitely is a good point, because that whole like feeling of resenting someone because you feel you made a choice specifically for them and what they wanted. If it doesn't work out how you planned, then it's like, the finger pointing. And I would say from, he's thinking of the transition of like whether or not, or the decision of whether or not he was going to take the position. And for me, what I had to figure out was like how to support him through the transition, like once he actually accepted the job, because although I can look at it and be like, this is an amazing opportunity, he was grieving and losing a sense or a part of him that he almost had to give up to take the position, right?
Yeah.
And so what I, made sure to do is like, one, just always asking like, you know, how's your day? Or like, are you liking it? Like, what's going on? Like, just being genuinely like interested in like what is happening in that realm. And then also just asking if there's anything that like he needs from me. And then one thing that we made sure to kind of talk about right off the rip was like, you're not leaving your podcast network. So it's like, you know, how do we make it make sense to where maybe it just means we hire more people and they take some work off of your workload so that you can feel like you're still doing both things without having to sacrifice the time and the energy that it actually takes to commit to both things.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest key to remember is when someone's going through a transition, don't assume that you think you know what supporting them looks like. Ask, literally say, hey, what do you need from me during this time? What can I do? What would be helpful for you? And not just that one time, but like constantly check in. I think a lot of times people have one conversation and they just take that conversation and they run with it instead of checking in on a daily and weekly basis. And that's where somebody can feel like, you know, a lack of support because it's like, yo, I said I didn't need nothing, but that was Sunday. It's like, you know?
No, I agree with you. I think that the main word that what you're talking about and the main word that you should take into consideration when you're supporting a partner through a life transition is attentiveness. Is
Yeah.
like making sure that you're paying attention to them. And although at times they may seem fine, it's like Bree said, always checking in. Like, how are you doing? How's the transition going? Because even Bria talked about with me, it was kind of like grieving a, you know, past life almost in what I was doing. And I truly was giving something up, something of value, something that, you know, was meant a lot to me, something I helped build. I really, you know, gave that up. But you have to understand that people grieve differently. So some people may show it immediately. Some people, it may hit them a little later. Some people, you may not hear it in how they talk, but in how they act, they might show it. But always checking in and being attentive is so important. And then you can start to dial back if the person is like, oh, you know, I'm good. But I've seen situations to where people wish somebody was around more and was a more, you know, attentive to them and the things that they needed. And then they would have been able to say like, oh, I'm good, or you don't need to do that. That's fine. Versus assuming, oh, I see them, they look fine, and not, you know, helping them at all or paying them any attention, thinking that they're good. And it's like, I think that you have to understand what I'm good means as well. For some people, it's just like, I don't need a gift. I don't even need words, but you just kind of being here is enough. Like, I don't need anything like physically from you, but just spending time with me, just having normal conversation. I know that that's a big thing when it comes to people losing people. Like, I know when my grandmother passed, I didn't post anything on my social media because I wasn't trying to get all the, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, and sorry for your loss. And I understand people have a great heart with that, but I just didn't want all of that. One thing you could have did to help me is just have a normal conversation. Give me a sense of normalcy. Like, make me laugh. Let's joke. Let's have fun. Let's go out and do something to help take my mind off it. I don't need you to do anything that's outside of the normal. I just need you to be normal. But a lot of times when people are grieving, people stop being normal and they become like extra super sensitive and kind of weird, that can make it uncomfortable for the person if they're grieving something. So it's important to take that into consideration. But I think when you are making a new life decision, if you're the person trying to make the decision, is really take into account your partner too, and like what you ultimately want to accomplish, or what you guys ultimately want to accomplish together. I know when I took that job, it was more than just my own ambitions. It was like, what does this look like for both Bree and I? How does this set us up in the things that we ultimately want to do? Because she's my wife. I have to factor in every single thing, including her and our future kids, our future family, of, you know, what this decision means for us.
Yeah. And one thing I did want to mention is and me and Dre have dealt with this because he is a very strong and like dependable, reliable person or man. And at the beginning of our relationship, and even like halfway through, I would always have to remind him, like, hey, it's okay to need me sometimes. Like, he would get sick, and I'm like, you're literally a walking germ, and like you're deciding to like leave and go get yourself medicine and soup and ginger ale instead of just asking me. Or like when I'm like, can I get you anything? He'll be like, no, I'm fine. And then an hour later, he's like at CVS. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it's okay to say, yes, I need this, or I, could use this. And now when he gets sick, he'll let me take care of him. But it was like, bruh, like pulling teeth. And I think sometimes that men, they feel they have to be, super strong and like not feeling like they need their woman. And as the woman, it is our responsibility to make sure that we're like, trying to pull back those layers and just making sure that if there are ways that we can serve them, support them through all things, that you can do that. Because it's also frustrating from a woman's perspective if you're like me and you could be very needy. It's like, I need for you all the time. I ask for you to do things for me all the time, and to receive these things and not feel like I can openly give those things because you would prefer to just do it yourself, or say like, no, I'm fine. Then it feels, what's my word? Not fair. It feels like it's not fair. So if you're in a relationship where you are a less needy individual, I would challenge you to really ask yourself, like, what things could I tell my partner that would make me feel more supported, just in everyday life. And I guarantee you, when you tell your person like, hey, I've been thinking about it, and like, I would really like if you could do this, or this is a way that you could help support me. And it's a sense of pride that your partner will take on, and they should be excited to want to do those things and to support you. But if you don't open your mouth and communicate what's needed, whether it's a life transition or it's just everyday life, then, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So I think that's important as well.
I agree. And lastly, I think just acknowledging what the person feels and what the person has done or is doing is so important when it comes to those transitions. So for instance, like me taking the job was one thing, and understanding that, okay, like Dre's doing this not just for his own personal ambitions, but this is really going to help us out like as a family. Like I said, we've been business owners for a long time. Insurance is a lot different when you own your own business versus going through a company. Like that's a major thing when it came to us wanting to look for a house. Getting qualified as, a business owner is a lot different than doing it when you have a W-2 and a paycheck coming every 2 weeks. Like these are things that, were decisions that I made for us and not just for my own ambitions from a career standpoint. And it's important that Bree acknowledged those things and was like, I see you and I see what you're doing for us. And the same thing happened with Bree. One of the hardest things for her to do, and the biggest, as I think is probably one of the largest and longest transitions in our relationship, is her unmarrying herself from what she thought her business would ultimately be, which was Shameless, from when she was like 18 to where it is now with All About It. Like that took time to go through that transition of like, this is what I'm doing. Okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And she still struggles with it from time to time, but not nearly as much. But I think it was important for me to acknowledge that, like, thank you for making this transition, because you ultimately did it unselfishly, because the selfish thing would have been keep doing Shameless. But what we have built with All About It and what Bree has done with All About It, it like set us up for, like we set ourselves up financially to be in a much better position than we would have been if you would have stayed doing Shameless at that moment when we started All About It. But that's a sacrifice, and it's important for me to acknowledge like how you feel in that moment and acknowledge the sacrifice that you made, to let you know, like, thank you for that. I see that you made the sacrifice. And on the other side, like whether it's a death in the family or it's a health thing, like acknowledging, like, I understand how you feel. I understand why you feel this way. Like I acknowledge that this is a tough time for you. I'm not going to act like this isn't tough or this isn't significant. You losing this person in your life, and this is a major transition that you now have to go through, and grieving and all that stuff. So I think acknowledgement is a key in getting through those life transitions together.
Yes.
Anything else to add?
Nope.
Nope. Well, that was this episode of Worth the Wait. Make sure if you want to write in a question for us, let us know. Go to the website at relationshiprestored.com and go to contact, and you can type it in there. But also make sure to subscribe to this channel, like, review. If you're on podcast, click that little plus button up at the top and follow the podcast so that it downloads every time we have a new episode. Make sure to follow us on social media at It's Dre Smith.
I was supposed to say it's Brianna Ponte. At Brianna Ponte.
And at Relationship Restored on all platforms. Peace.